Hey guys, it's me, Seren, back with another video. This video is going to be about Antonio Martin, who I'm sure you guys have all heard of by now. He was killed last week, a black youth that was killed last week by a white police officer on Christmas Eve, which really, truly sucks. I've been waiting to make a video about this because I wanted to really gather my thoughts on it before I made this video. There aren't very many details that have been released at this moment about this case. I don't know, and the whole story sounds extremely suspicious, which tons of people are noting. Antonio Martin was an 18-year-old, he was a black teenager. He was in Berkley, Missouri, which is a few miles away from Ferguson, with a friend, and allegedly, supposedly, they were stopped by a police officer because they fit the description of some guys that had committed a burglary or a robbery. The police officer had a body camera on, but it was turned off, which the media is not really talking about. They're just kind of glossing over that. And he also had a dash cam in his vehicle, which I think they're also saying was also turned off. So we don't really have any up-close, high-quality footage of what happened. Basically, the police officer claims he stopped these two dudes for fitting a description, and that Antonio Martin pulled out a gun on the cop, and the cop shot him and killed him. He didn't die instantaneously. There were tons of people out there because there's still lots of people in Ferguson protesting and stuff like that. So a lot of people were saying that he was still breathing after he was shot, that they left him there for 30 minutes without calling an ambulance, without getting any type of medical attention. So kind of similar to what we saw in the Tamir Rice case, where they did not immediately perform any type of CPR or resuscitation. They just left him out there bleeding out for 6 minutes. Apparently they left Antonio Martin out on the ground for 30 minutes. He basically bled out and died. Since there were so many people, the cops opted to call for crowd control instead of, an EMS. Which is horrible. It's just really disgusting and horrible. There's been a lot of chatter floating around about, what happened, and the police ended up, I want to say it was the St. Louis PD. The police ended up releasing a couple of videos, surveillance footage, because this happened in a gas station parking lot, and there were security cameras. So they ended up releasing this footage. The first video that they released was from 50 feet away, from all the way across the parking lot, and the footage is extremely grainy. You can hardly see anything. You see the cop roll up on the two kids. You see Antonio Martin. You can see him raise his arm, but you really can't see what's in his hand. You really can't tell. It's extremely blurry and grainy. And then they came out with a second video that's this really weird angle where you can really only see his friend. You see his friend reacting. You see his friend start to run away. You see the cop. I didn't see the cop. People are saying they saw the cop, but the cop apparently walks up, and then you see the friend kind of talking, and then you see the friend break, run. That's when the cop shot him. But the footage is literally like this. It's all this empty space, and then this little bit of footage in the corner, and you're supposed to make some type of snap decision and judgment. So there's been a lot of talk about this case. What I want to talk about, as you could probably tell by my title, I'm going to talk about the power of suggestion. I want to talk about two things. The first thing I want to talk about is the power of suggestion. Was there a gun, or was there not a gun? The videos and the pictures that have been released are extremely grainy, and I kind of feel like the mere suggestion that there was a gun is really playing a huge part in the way this is playing out in the public and in the eyes of the public. I've read some comments. I've had people say to me on Instagram and stuff like that, I can clearly see a gun. I clearly saw a gun. And I'm making the screw face well, how can you say that you clearly saw a gun when the video itself isn't clear? It's grainy, it's murky. The video where you can see all three of them is from, 50 to 100 feet away, and it's grainy surveillance footage. And this was the same opinion that I had during the Tamir Rice after the Tamir Rice shooting, which is still ongoing, people are saying you can clearly see him reaching for a gun. I'm like, how can you clearly see anything in a video that is not clear? You know, you've already been told by the police and by the media that there was a gun there, because a lot of news and media outlets have been running the story, not allegedly, not there was allegedly a gun, not there was possibly a gun, but like he had a gun, like end of story, like period. And then they're putting this video, they're putting these like red circles around these like murky black shapes. You really can't tell, you know. What if the cops or the media had said it was a wallet? It was a cell phone. You can go back and watch the video and think like, it could be a wallet. It could be a cell phone. It could be a gun. You really can't tell. And there have been tons of studies done on the power of suggestion, especially in kind of, you know, indeterminate, you know, like I said, shapes and grainy pictures and grainy video. Your mind can kind of be tricked into seeing whatever you want to see, you know. And I will include links to some studies on the power of suggestion. And there have also been studies, and I've talked about this specifically in other videos, there have also been studies that show that we have an unconscious bias against black and brown bodies as well. You know, I'm going to find a link and post it for you guys, so please go read this because it's super interesting. I remember reading about a study that they did, that a research group did, where they showed people flashcards. So let's say they showed, you know, 100 people these flashcards. Let's say like 25 flashcards. So they showed them different situations of people fighting, you know, having like violent altercations. So half of the flashcards were, it was like two white dudes fighting. So it would be two white dudes fist fighting, and then two white dudes, one of them had a knife, and then two white dudes and one of them had a gun. So they showed them the flashcards really quick, and then they asked them to identify, you know, who had the knife, who had the gun, who was the aggressor. And I want to say it was like a hair color thing with the white people. So like one white dude would have blonde hair, one white dude would have like brown hair. So it would be like, okay, well, who had the weapon? The blonde dude or the brunette? And for the most part, the people, let's say like if they showed it to 100 people, let's say like 90 of them, you know, 90% were able to correctly identify the blonde guy was the aggressor. The dude with the brown hair had the knife. The blonde guy had the gun. They were able to correctly identify it. But then the researchers switched it up, and they showed them the flashcards showing violent altercations between a black person and a white person. So a black person and a white person fighting. A black person and a white person, you know, had a knife or had a gun. In this case, in every single flashcard, the white person was the aggressor, but people were half as likely to correctly identify. So they showed them the flashcards, and then they said, okay, who was the aggressor? Half of them, people that were 100% certain that they trusted their eyes, half of them said the black guy had the knife, the black guy had the gun, the black guy was the aggressor in the fist fight. And they were sure, they were 100% sure, because the people were like, oh, are you sure? And they're like, yeah, you like just showed me the flashcards, I'm sure. And then when they showed them the flashcards again, they were surprised, because they were so sure that they had seen the black person with the gun or the knife or being the aggressor against the white person, when, you know, in actuality, in the flashcards, it was the white person that was being the aggressor against the black person or the one holding the weapon. This is evidence of an unconscious bias, which again, I've talked about in tons of videos. Racism and anti-blackness are so internalized within all of us, because they interviewed all different types of people, that it's something we really have to fight and work hard to unlearn. Because when all you're seeing are these images of black people as evil, as ghetto, as trash, as poor, as thugs, as this, as that, you start to really internalize that type of stuff on a subconscious level. So even if you're not consciously thinking like black people are fucking trash, like even if you're black, you may not consciously be thinking that, but in the back of your mind, underneath, you've internalized the idea that black people are naturally violent, are naturally the aggressor, to the point where your eyes will literally play tricks on you and have you thinking, oh, the black person had to be the aggressor. So in the Antonio Martin situation, it's not hard to look at grainy pictures and grainy video footage and say, you know, is that a gun? Is he pulling a gun? I don't know. I can't tell, but I already know that black people are just like violent thugs and whatever, so I'm just gonna like go with it. I'm just gonna like roll with it. Without noticing, you know, how suspicious it is that the cops' cameras were turned off and, you know, all types of stuff. It's really troubling. It's really unsettling. And the second thing that I wanted to talk about in this video was that even if Antonio Martin did have a gun, because I know I'm going to have tons of people saying like, well, no, he had a gun, he had a gun, he had a gun. Even though this video looks like it was shot with one eye closed, drunk, spinning around in circles, I can clearly tell that he had a loaded gun, he put it to the cop's head, and this, and this happened. Like, they were there, and they live tweeted the whole thing. I know I'm going to have those people in my comment section. So what I have to say to that is, even if he did have a gun, that does not give police the right to execute him. Period. Point blank, period. I don't care if Antonio Martin had an M16 and hand grenades like Max Payne, which is something that I've put on Tumblr and people have been really reblogging it and sharing in these sentiments. I don't care if Antonio Martin had an M16 and hand grenades like Max Payne. He did not deserve to be executed and left to die in the street like a dog. They left him in the street for 30 minutes while he bled to death, and then they left him in the street for another 2 hours completely uncovered. Why? We already saw this with the Mike Brown case where you leave someone out there for hours and hours, and people are saying this is like the new form of lynching, okay? You kill someone, you leave them out in the street, you create a spectacle to scare people and to show other black and brown bodies, you know, this could be you. You get what I'm saying? And it's like cops, they neutralize armed suspects without using lethal force every day. That is their job, right? It is their job to apprehend and arrest, not to play judge, jury, and executioner. It's their job to apprehend, arrest, de-escalate the situation, and to uphold justice, and to make sure that, you know, people get their day in court in front of a jury or a judge of their peer, in front of a judge or a jury of their peers or anything like that. It's not their job to decide, you know, right then and there, up, pow, 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 you're dead. I felt like I have the right to kill you, you know? And a lot of people are saying like, well, they have the right, you know, because they're in dangerous situations and blah, blah, blah. No, cops neutralize armed suspects every single day. I can read you an abbreviated list because I have one right here in front of me. I cannot pronounce this dude's name. Doskar Sarnev. I'm so horrible. It's, I want to say Russian or Czechoslovakian. The Boston bomber, you know, one of the mass murderers. And he also contributed to a shooting that happened after the Boston bombing. He was apprehended and arrested with weapons after shooting people. He's sitting in a jail right now. He was apprehended, you know. James Egan Holmes, who is my go-to example, the Aurora shooter. He shot up the movie theater in Aurora, Colorado at the Dark Knight premiere. Killed 12 people, wounded 80 more, went in there with an assault rifle, you know, killed people, shot people up. Cops bum rushed him, they apprehended him, they arrested him, they took him to jail, he had his day in court, you know? Evan Mills, private citizen, pulled out a shotgun during a confrontation with an officer. He was neutralized, he was arrested, you know? Donald Pickney, arrested after pointing a rifle out of his car in a mall parking lot and threatening people. He was arrested and charged with inducing panic, okay? He was not shot up. Anthony Kennedy, arrested after pointing a gun out of his car and fighting with 2 police officers with the gun, okay? Police pick and choose every single day whether or not they want to kill you or apprehend you, okay? That's why they have training. That's why we spend thousands of dollars to train police officers in non-lethal tactics. Why do they carry a taser? Why do they carry batons? Why do we have a SWAT team that's trained to, you know, extract people and killers and gunmen from situations, you know? Why do we have, I watch tons of Criminal Minds, you know, a BAU unit of profilers, when if all we're going to do is just start shooting and killing people on sight, point blank, without trying to neutralize the situation? Why do we have all that? Why do we spend thousands and millions of government money, taxpayers' dollars, if cops can just shoot and kill people? That's not the way it's supposed to work. The system is not behaving the way it was designed to work, okay? And anyone that says, well, a cop has the right to do this, this, and this, you're probably a racist. You're probably a racist. Because I guarantee you, if cops were going around shooting up everyone the way that they shoot black and brown bodies, it would be mass hysteria, okay? Like, if a cop, imagine if you had like a little sister or brother that stole gum from a store, you know, which I'm sure we've all seen that at one point in time, or done that ourselves at one point in time. You had a little brother or sister that stole gum from the store. let's say there's like an officer in the store. They saw your little 8-year-old sister put the gun in her pocket. They pulled out the gun and they shot your little sister point blank in the head. How would you feel? Would you be like, he had the right. She did steal something. I don't know. Imagine if your little sister had a little BB gun on her or a little pocket knife on her, and she had it in her hand, she's playing with it, and a cop saw it, shot her point blank in the head. Would you say, my little 8-year-old sister was armed? Or would you say, wait, maybe we should be talking about ways to, more effectively neutralize people than shooting them? What is this, gunslinger, shoot first, ask questions later mentality? This is not the Wild Wild West. This is not a movie. People are being killed. These are lives lost forever, and they're not coming back. And yet we can see the way that officers pick and choose who they utilize this deadly and lethal force on, because as I just read you a list of people that, they can pull weapons on guns. They can pull weapons on cops. They can walk into parks with shotguns and rifles and wave them around and point them at children. They can pull a gun on their girlfriend, and engage in a standoff for hours. I will include links to all of these cases, and yet cops manage to non-violently neutralize and de-escalate the situation without using lethal force. And yet we're seeing time and time again cops choosing, because this is a choice, choosing to use lethal force with black and brown bodies. Period. The end. So that's just my 2 cents on this Antonio Martin thing. I'll try to keep you guys updated as it unfolds, because it literally, just happened. We're closing out the year. I'm probably going to make an end of the year video. I don't know what it's going to be about, but it's going to be about something. So, you guys can look forward to that. And food for thought as always. Check the links out. This is probably going to be a link heavy post, lots to read and think about. So, food for thought as always. Thanks for watching, guys. Peace.